Hi, and thanks for joining the Formation video all around the importance of managed service in the UC and CC space. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and here comes the agenda. Thanks very much. So just a quick recap on the agenda. We're going to go through introduction, how do we get here, to taking lead from Microsoft, taking back sort of 10 years ago when Office 365 was in emergence. We see the same, I guess, stir in the market around the UC and CC space in the cloud. We'll go into that. We'll talk about breakfast versus managed service. We're then going to go through to cloud voice, as easy as ABC, or is it? Some of the public cloud providers will have you believe it is as easy as ABC, but we've got lots of reasons to believe otherwise. Obviously, successful voice rollouts within your business. They are at the front line of communications. So what is the success of that rollout, making sure user adoption and clear quality voice access from anywhere is accessible. When we're going into the Formation Managed Service and who we are and what we do around support. And then finishing off the session, somebody who joined as well, and a big topic at the moment is all around Microsoft Teams. I'm sure if you've been using it, working from home at the moment, been great. There's obviously a lot of improvements to be done. I'm talking about the direct routing and the connection of PBX type functionality into Microsoft Teams. And then we'll talk about Work Smarter and how this all wraps up with the Q&A at the end. So for any of those not joined my sessions before, I always like to kick off with an analogy. And by the way, if you don't already, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. We often write articles in UC Today. Do give us a look up, Formation Tech, on any of those platforms, because we're regularly writing blogs, do different webinars, etc., to keep market insights. And you can follow sort of, if it's interesting to you, around the whole cloud UC and CC space, updates on the market and sort of where we see and guests see that come to write for us around what's going on in the industry. Anyway, so I'm an avid rugby fan. Wish I could have played for England, but it was never quick enough. But anyway, so when we look at managed services and IT, the analogy I always think of is England rugby team. Now, England rugby team probably, or any sort of professional rugby team, wouldn't be put on a rugby pitch really, although they can all play individual rugby and they're all very talented individuals. As a team, probably, as you're all aware, the underpinned coaching staff and all the back office medics and everything that goes together for a match day really is the critical ingredient for any successful rugby team. So Eddie Jones, on the bottom left there, obviously he's the head coach and he's got his team underneath him. And they've got specialist skills. So there's an attack coach, there's the skills coach, there's the forwards coach, the defence coach. They make up the front line, much like an IT team do in any business. They make up the front line of keeping the services going, keeping the rugby team moving forward. And then if you think of an analogy such as the medics, for example, obviously in lesser professional sports, Saturday, Sunday league, for example, injury happens, you'll go to the NHS, you go to A&E, they'll look at your knee, for example, if it's a knee injury, and you may or may not get some support. And probably the road to recovery is quite long, painful, and it's not very specialised or targeted, if you will. Talk about professional services, and also an in-house IT or managed service, much like England rugby team. They'll have a dedicated medic who knows the coach, knows the injury, knows the type of player they are, knows the position they play, and they'll probably be able to give targeted medical advice, recovery, and get them back and playing a lot quicker than sort of a generalised NHS approach, if you will. So all about today is around the difference of generic support versus specialist support and all the skills that go underneath an IT managed service, whether that's Microsoft Office 365, whether that is, when we talk about UC and CC, it's not as simple as someone will make you believe. So just a quick introduction about who we are in Formation if you haven't heard of us before. First time you're sort of joining one of our webinars. As I said, we are cloud and UC specialists. Our whole business is set up around real-time voice communications. So that's anything from telephony, handsets on desks, soft phones, going all the way through to in-depth, complex contact centers across omnichannel, digital, AI, etc. So we have the whole preflub across those board, but ultimately it's what we do. We don't sort of breadth out into IT services. It's very much designed, and our team have been working together for over 15 years, traditionally from on-prem PBX world all the way through to now cloud services, where Formation was born, We've now got 15,000 seats on our cloud, going into new ventures of contact center, and really concentrating on that ecosystem. So yeah, hopefully it comes across today, and it's what we do, it's what we know, and we've got all in-house skills across the breadth of the ecosystem that provides that real-time voice services. So we come on to Microsoft. Going back sort of 10 years, as we said, sort of 2010 era, Microsoft went through a massive change in the market around moving from on-prem Exchange servers with all the ecosystem of Microsoft. So we've got the periodic table here. And ultimately, people in IT had to be skilled up because each of the applications, as you know, in Microsoft, they all work intertwined with each other. SharePoint needs all of the security settings. Outlook needs all the security settings that depend on SharePoint. You've got obviously all the Office applications. You've got Teams now. You had Skype for Business. So you could be a jack of all trades, but ultimately there was a dependence because it's so mission critical across the business. Whether you had one of the apps or all of the apps within Microsoft on-prem, you often went to an IT managed service provider. But you had to have the skills to look after all of those ecosystem of the Microsoft periodic table, if you will. So very much like today, if we look at break-fix versus managed service, that IT battle of the decade went on. So there was a whole load of businesses out there in the IT managed service space who were selling tin. They were maintaining, they had feet on the street for engineers, they were keeping the lights on for all of the on-prem Microsoft suite of applications, if you will. So, you can see there SharePoint, even some things like Microsoft Silverlight was around for a couple of years. Then Microsoft rightly moved to the cloud, announced Office 365, and IT support partners were going, wow, what do we do? Everything moves to the cloud. How can we survive? Where's our value? Now, yes, you could, and not many do. You can go directly to buy Microsoft Office 365 from Microsoft, but how many people do that? Probably not many. Yes, you can procure your licenses from them, but absolutely 9 times out of 10, IT and businesses still have a very, very close relationship in terms of managing that Microsoft ecosystem, because it's not just an off-the-shelf product. You need to think about all the policies internally for it, making sure, as we said, they intertwine and they work together. So there is absolutely a market for managed service in IT versus traditional break-fix, and that's exactly what we're seeing now in the voice and UC markets and contact center markets. You've got the traditionalists on the left, Avaya, Cisco, Mitel, Unify, very, very successful in selling on-prem, have all generally migrated to the cloud and doing a fantastic job at it. And then you've got the new kids on the block, if you will, the Zooms, the 8x8s, the Fuse, the RingCentrals, and the public cloud space, who, again, do a great job, but by their own admittance, and we'll talk about it on the next slide, do have issues outside of just not, they'll have you believe, sell the product, it's easy, but absolutely they don't really have the underpinned support structure to make it all work and continue to have a solid voice service, especially when it's so vocal inside your business when any of those issues go wrong. So we as providers have gone through, again, this massive change. What happens if everything moves to the public cloud? How can we survive? Absolutely. We have the skill sets. You need the skill sets outside the ecosystem, and I'll go into that later in a couple of the slides. So real life examples, on-prem traditionalists move to the cloud, public cloud providers, new, sexy, but have they got the underpin support? There's a real balance going on in the market right now. So come to Cloud Voice as easy as 1, 2, 3, and this really has come out. If any of you have been watching sort of the keeping up to date, Avaya have announced a great new partnership with RingCentral. ACO, they've called it. It's launched in the US. It's soon to launch in EMEA, and that's going to give Avaya the ability to sell public cloud, but also give RingCentral the ability to sell into the Avaya base where they haven't, or more into the mid-market enterprise space. They haven't really succeeded, and there's a number of reasons for that. One of them being that, if you look at any of these providers, their average seat count probably are in the sub 50. 8x8 RingCentral particularly got large-ish market share, but they're in very much the SME space. So they've been a sales outfit, and some of these areas you can see around in the sort of ring there, these are the promises they'll give to customers around how easy their service is. It's all around self-service. Log in, there's a nice portal, you can manage it all of yourself, Mr. Customer. That's all well and good if you're a very skilled IVR engineer and you understand the way the call flows go, fair enough. Absolutely, you could do self-service. As an IT team, do you want to do self-service and start looking after a phone system in the cloud? That's another question. They'll maintain that, some of the projects, there'll be no professional service costs, no setup. I always sort of scorp at that. Nothing's free in this world. And of course, if you don't have anyone that knows what they're doing, setting up, how successful are projects that going to be? Network readiness test is available. RingCentral themselves, if you go onto their public website, will tell you, actually, yes, it's really easy. You can just run the service over the top, but here's a 25-page, very in-depth document that you need to change all your firewall settings. You need to change all your LAN settings. Make sure you've got the minimum bandwidth requirements. Make sure you've got all the right ports open, on and on and on. So whilst they'll suggest there is 100% or 99.99999 uptime SLA, ultimately that's on their own cloud because they've got multiple instances around the world. As soon as it leaves their edge, that SLA is not their problem anymore. So again, if you start looking into the detail, which we've done with the Avaya RingCentral opportunity, which we're absolutely going to be pushing into our customers for the right partners, although the product and the technicality of it is very, very good, the underpin network and the underpin support is not there. And again, that's by their own admittance, hence why things like the RingCentral and Avaya partnership are coming along. So we take a look back here around the fundamentals of real-time voice services. Well, as I said, even for our own experience selling our own private cloud instances to our customers, I think, we ask the support desk, and the general noise or the general support tickets that get raised generally isn't about the stability of the core IP office or the core Avaya system. It will be around all of the ecosystem things. It could be to do with the network, as you can see down the left-hand side. It could be to do with firewalls. Oh, my firewall's not allowing the relevant ports through. Okay, so we need to understand what firewalls you have, understand the nuances, where to look. What is it, the end user devices that are issue? Is it your quality of service on your network? Is it the VLANs? Is it the ports that aren't open? There's a whole number of areas that can affect, from core of the cloud down to an end user device. If you have packet loss on a voice service, people get annoyed by it. And it's not good because it's a real-time service. So without the knowledge of the ecosystem, you're at your weakest point. So the fact is, we've been here, we've done it. All of these areas outside of what the public cloud providers will say, hey, it's an easy service, just switch it on and go over the top. Actually, if over the top isn't as seamless as everyone gets, you'll start having issues. And actually, as I said, it's all about understanding where to look, what triggers, what point, monitoring, etc., across the end-to-end that helps diagnose the issues, and making sure, as a provider of this information, of what we do, we're not just looking at our own core, we're actually helping the customer diagnose and get that service back up and running as quick as possible. So it's not just the core, it really is the ecosystem that makes up the real-time voice services, and the same goes for contact center as well. So I'll just give you an example around, I'm not going to bore you with P1 and P4 tickets and the complexities of support services. But if you look at an analogy here around P1 categorization, so in terms of 8byte and RingCentral, for example, they will class a P1 incident. So let's say you've signed up to them directly. You have their basic support package, which South American call center that know nothing about you. You ring up and you say, hey, loads of our users offline can't use a telephone service. They will go, the first point of call, they'll go, okay, that could potentially be a P1. What I'm going to do is log on to my cloud monitoring, and they go, okay, well, we can see our cloud service at RingCentral 8byte is up and running. So we won't class that as a P1, Mr. Customer, because as far as we're concerned, our cloud's up and running, must be something of your network that we don't manage, we can't help with. So you as a customer then are stuck going, okay, I now need to go and talk to my network provider, and I need to go and talk to my security team, my firewall team, my WAN provider, to try and unpick what the issue is. Whilst in the background, you've got fires going off all over the place because your execs, anyone in the business, can't make calls in this experience. So what they categorize as P1 is very different to someone that, like ourselves, at Formation, will class P1. On the contrary, the customer calls in and says, my phone's just not working. Because we're providing a managed service, we will look at and help the customer. Even if we don't manage your WAN or your LAN or your firewalls, we'll help, because we are providing that service to work with your providers, look at the core, look at every single leg, understand with our monitoring where things are going wrong, and help you get your system back up and running. There's quite subtle differences, which will make a big, big difference to your service around what they categorize a P1 to P4 ticket versus what we
do as a managed service provider and actually help you getting ultimately your phone system back up and running and your business as usual. So there's some, again, it's very important to look at. You're looking at these public cloud providers, the difference of going direct versus for a managed service provider. There's a whole area there that's quite grey. That do you, as an IT team, want to be taking on that responsibility when, quite frankly, you've got other things to be getting on with as well. So, as I said, their SLAs of service only apply to their core and edge. You've got the public cloud providers in the middle. Then you need the specialists and skills. Back to that rugby analogy, you need the connectivity team, the WAN team, the LAN team, the firewall management, the platform team, keeping the lights on, having that knowledge, that breadth around, importance of that ecosystem within the cloud service. So that is ultimately your responsibility if you sign up directly with these customers, with these public service providers without the knowledge. And if you are sufficient, great. But if you're not, if there's any areas of gap, that could become a weakness and obviously affect your delivery to your end users and your stakeholders. So that's where we come in. As I said, formation managed service is important, and it's really interesting, as we said before, around the ecosystem, because ultimately we live and breathe it. We know where to look and can help customers across that area. And I said, ask any of our support engineers. It's not really about the technology anymore in terms of end user devices. The issues that we do see will be around third-party firewalls and that ecosystem and being able to fix them as quick as possible. So what do we do as formation end-to-end? So, all of these areas come in and intertwine a bit like the periodic table for Skype, for Microsoft, shall I say. UC, we talked about. Avaya, absolutely core of the business of what we do. We're moving more into the ACO space as well. So there's a place for both of those areas. Contact center, if anyone, Avaya through and through, still market leaders in the contact center space, own the most seats, do the best technology. So we're absolutely still provide very, very in-depth both voice, multimedia, and more sort of automation to the contact center. And another area we're starting to work with, if any of you have Salesforce or CRMs out there, is looking to work closely with Vonage, who are Salesforce specialists, used to be known as New Voice Media. So there's areas there in the UC and CC that we are in-house, work with, understand the end-to-end of those two sort of overpinned UC layers and contact center layers. Then underneath, obviously, you've got devices. Again, we understand firewalls, we understand the LAN, we understand the WAN, the MPLS, the SIP network, the internet, all these pieces of the pie that come together. Because we live and breathe every day, we have the specialist skills. So you as IT, again, you're not having to learn the ropes in all of these different areas to try and keep the service up and running. And then, of course, at the bottom there, integration, more key than ever. APIs, integration to CRM, making sure your voice services and your contact center services basically complement the business, drive ROI, and make your users and your customer experience as best as it can. So again, trust us is what we do, but absolutely can help and handhold you through some of these adoption services. So I talked about it, in-house, fully certified technical support team and support desk. Another area that we've been working very hard on and pride ourselves is around the quarterly service reviews, and they can be monthly as well for the right sort of customer if they require it. But holding us account really to the tickets. So if you're raising tickets, we give you an SLA on our response times. Are we meeting those on a monthly basis? Are there regular tickets that are coming in from your support desk that we can help with training on? Is there regular tickets from the end users that, again, if there are issues that we see regular or reoccurring issues, we can proactively look at those and work with you and understand. And if we're not, quite frankly, it keeps us honest and making sure that we are hitting and doing what we promised we will do to our SLAs. And it's not just about the core service and the uptime. It's about absolutely, helping your end users and giving you the ability and the flexibility as an IT team to be able to manage and work through those your normal day job, not having to worry about a whole new ecosystem that you might not have thought about before. Project management and dedicated trainers is so important. Even if you look at Microsoft and around the Skype for Business to Teams sort of migration, if you will, on their website, we'll come to Teams shortly. Microsoft are very, very good about, and they'll play massive kudos to the user adoption. Doesn't need to be big bang, but critical to training, making sure people understand it. You get all these sexy new applications. Anyone that's used anything in the part of Teams is a good example. You've got Zoom and all these new sexy online providers. If you don't know how to use these systems and the users don't get it, the adoption will be poor, and time and time again, IT will go, we've got this great new system. Everyone goes, oh, we don't like change. What's this about? But getting users adopted, trainers, supervisors, etc., understanding the technology, you'll get so much better utilization out of it. Talk about the SLAs and target times, 24/7 advanced monitoring, so understanding every leg of the network. And again, that really the key to this is the full ecosystem knowledge. So whether you're looking at Avaya, whether you're looking at public cloud, whether you're looking at OneEdge for your Salesforce integration, it's what we know, it's what we do. So let us talk to you and complement not just the technology, but also the support services around it. So just to wrap up on this topic before we go into the Teams element of the call, good and the bad. So very much, we've had an interesting 4 years in the brand name of Formation. It's previously, Aurora before we got sold out to 6 Degrees. We've won some fantastic accounts, and there's been 2 examples here on both sort of, I guess, the extremes of each end. So there's an insurance reseller. They were quite large, multiple sites across the UK, 600 sort of staff, if you will, that were on the phone selling insurance policies. So a bit like a compare the market type customer example. Now we got chosen to work the project, but we were given very short time frames to deploy. There wasn't really a scope of works deployed, so it wasn't really clear for both parties around what they wanted. We knew they wanted UC, we knew they wanted contact center, but we didn't spend the time, and this is lesson learned. Everyone makes, you need to go through the lows to improve the highs, if you will. So no scope of works defined. There was deep integration to the systems requirement, and again, that came into the scope of works not being developed. There wasn't a clear understanding of what was going on. They said we wanted limited training because they wanted to be agile and crack on with it, against sort of our advice. That was agreed. There was legacy network not designed for real-time voice. So once it started to be rolled out en masse to lots of users, network wasn't designed to be able and held up for that voice service, so issues arose. And they wanted project delivery light touch. They wanted to cut corners as such and not spend the time in the PS, because some of the other providers that were bidding, professional services, they're not important. We can keep it cheap and light touch, as they said. So there was a lot of, I thought we were getting this, and it was a tough project to begin with. They're now a happy customer, and we've got them serving high levels and have been continuing to work at home through this current situation we sit in. Versus if we look at another software provider, again, complex, multi-sites, 1,200 back office staff, 600 agents. Move forward, there was a clear defined scope and project management, planned rollout of each site, ongoing service reviews for the SLA performance, considered MPLS planning, understood their network, put in our monitoring services. They invested heavily in training, and users and admin teams were happy. It was a big task rolling that out to all those users. Support desk synchronization was important. They had their own in-house IT support desk. We got our ticketing systems lined up, which meant actually we could match their SLAs and work with a service that actually complemented their in-house IT services teams as well. And we took a deep understanding in their network. So, it's quite easy to see the managed service and the professional service of any of these projects. Don't just go into them thinking they're easy to do. They do need consideration, and there are the whole load of planning that needs to go in to make sure they're successful. Hopefully that's come across in the last few slides. So we now move into the short Teams section, something that's been really hot in the sort of, I guess, the last year since Teams has really started developing. It's been around now, it's really maturing as a product. I think us particularly, and I'm sure lots of you on the call today have been using Teams for the home working. It's been great. There's been a few hiccups. There's a few annoyances with only 4 videos on the screen, etc. But it's a pretty good product, and it's great for collaboration, and it's ever evolving. It's a real key part of Microsoft. However, there is one question we always get asked, and we continually do, is around how do I bring my traditional, my existing voice services into Microsoft Teams? So you as a customer have two options when you want to talk about call routing into Teams. You can go down the pure Microsoft route, which I'll explain, or you can go down what they call direct routing route, if I will, and that's around connecting your traditional PBX, your own SIP trunks, etc., into the Microsoft suite. So if you're traditionally, we see if you're an E3 customer on Microsoft, and these are all sort of public RRP price. Obviously, there's various rate plans, public sector, non-profit, etc. But hopefully you'll get the gist of the example here. So if you're on E3, you're already paying $17.60 per user per month across the board. Fine. Microsoft, you say, okay, I want to add calling into Microsoft. And what's that enabling in Teams? It gives me the dial pad to be able to call out to mobiles, landlines, etc., outside of my internal network. So what do you need for that? You need to add the phone system license, which is an additional £6 per user per month for all users. And then there's various call plans, which I'll go on to the next slide, which basically Microsoft Minutes, if you will. They're not very good. They don't give you many minutes. There's international, and they're actually quite pricey per user. They start to stack up. And guess what? Even to buy these services, you have to put a credit card to buy minutes, basically. So how many businesses want to use credit card to buy minutes for their phone system? So if you're on E3 and you want to unlock the full calling plan within Microsoft Teams, you're looking there, nearly doubling the cost there at £32.70. Whereas E5, some of you may be on E5 for the security additions, that includes the phone system license. So there's no, that £6 goes away, but you still need the dial plan there at £9.10 per user. So again, $39.90, you're adding cost just for the ability to add some minutes to your phone system there. We'll talk about the call plan just to give you a perspective. What is the domestic call plan there? £9.10. Cover you on E3. You get 3,000 domestic minutes in the US. You get 12,000 domestic minutes in the UK, so not many. As I said, it's this pay-as-you-go type experience. So what we actually say to customers is, and this is what lots of people are doing, and there's a growing number of authorized session border controller customers. The two that have been really working with Microsoft for many years are Ribbon, used to be known as Sonos, and Audio Codes there in the top left. So they are basically either on-prem or cloud provisioned SBCs, and using Microsoft Direct Routing, which is basically they've opened the back door of Teams and allowed customers to bring their own trunks. And that also means you can connect a traditional or a third-party PBX into that environment. So those that want to use Teams for calling, absolutely fine to do that. Maybe you have a contact center that can't use Teams because you need solid voice, you need the contact center application in your desktop. You can have a best of both worlds approach and connect the two, so you can have inter-site calling and you can give users their functionality and flexibility around. What it now enables you to do as a customer is have a single dial plan, utilize those SIP trunks. If you're on Gamma here in the UK, for example, with free calls, you don't have to pay that £9.10 a month. You pay for your trunks, pay for your SBC either in the cloud or on premise, and connecting your PBX or your cloud voice service. So it's giving you that ecosystem best of both worlds approach. And this is absolutely something we can talk to you about. If you're wanting to do that, it's fairly inexpensive, the SBC on a managed service, but it means you can invest, continue to get that solid voice, traditional cloud or on-prem PBX that you may be wanting to use. It has all the sexy bells and features that Teams doesn't have, and probably is quite a way off, but you can also give those users that want to use Teams the ability to be able to call out. It's a really, really neat thing. Fair play for Microsoft to open it out. I think they've realized that they can't own the whole ecosystem. But absolutely, we've been talking, we've already got customers working in this, as have we ourselves internally, and it's working great, and it works for the right type of customer. So if Teams is something you're looking at, come and talk to us, we can help you. And it's not just about the setting up, as I said before, it's about the things like the training, the user adoption, the network readiness, the testing, all of the areas to make sure it's successful, because guess what, if it doesn't work, you'll be getting a knock on the door from those users that get disgruntled by it.
Thank you for your time on the webinar. Hope you enjoyed it, and if there's any questions, please do let us know or reach out to us at Formation.